Beautiful people, welcome back. My name is Mike LaBelle. I have not decided how to rebrand this channel yet with a name. If you put that in the comments, I will give you free FC points all day, every day. If you need a little incentive. Used to be the FIFA school. Now it's going to be completely focused on tips, tutorials, everything intricate with the game. Just wait for it. Today, I want to go over 10 different gameplay functions that I've noticed. And in a day and a half, I have played 14 hours and 41 minutes of FC 24. I say that because I believe that my opinion will have additional credibility. I'm not just talking from what's going out on social media. I actually have the game thanks to EA, and I've been grinding the game. If you want to watch any of that, twitch.tv/Mike LaBelle. Let's get into this. Number one, unpredictable collisions. When players have bumped into each other, and it's made some of these larger players potentially be much more valuable. And I'm not just talking about the Haalands or the Virgil van Dijks. Some of the interactions, even if they don't win the header, it offsets or puts off another player, or you clothesline somebody. The interactions, those engagements, those collisions, some of those animations are a little bit funky. Add in some suspect connection or some delay or some lag, and I would expect there being an early patch that probably is going to address this to a certain degree. And as a disclaimer, it's easier to be critical when you notice something that's maybe a little bit out of place. That was number one. Number two, meta players matter a lot. And I'm not just talking about the high-rated, rare, expensive type with the Mbappes or the Haalands. I've already had quite the glimpse under the hood of the Renato Sanchez or the Camavinga. Malin has been coasting for pace. I like Bailey. There's a lot of different players. I will make full videos about overpowered and cheaper options. The point that I want to get across is players that work into, as per usual with a lot of these titles, it's noticeable that they will be better. And it's not solely around rating, but fitting into the game type or just having better movements, better attacking notion, better attacking positioning, defensive chase back. You get the idea. Number three, shooting. Finesse shots, I'm not scoring them. I'm just going to throw that out there. I get to that finesse shot angle, whether it's time green, it's mistimed, it's somewhere in between. I'm really not scoring. The placement hasn't been there. It doesn't have the same extra emphasis. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it hasn't happened at a high level of frequency, and it's probably not the best option in many of those circumstances. However, last year's Trivelas, they look a little bit different, but they still work. I'm scoring from outside the box. The power shot definitely works. You can score even a regular shot depending on the player from outside the box. You catch a goalkeeper slipping, you line it up right, you get the power. Oof. But I have not had a lot of success with finesse shooting. In that same section for finishing, everything has felt somewhat intuitive. The ball rolls a little bit slower in the 1v1s. I will say a goalkeeper movement will be prominent, it will be important, it will be mandatory. It makes a difference, not even at the higher levels, but somewhere in the intermediate. Number four, passing. And I might even put attacking positioning into this equation or this section. I felt that a lot of the players are actually making very nice overlapping runs, support runs. It does depend on your tactics. It does depend on your pass and move. It does depend on your formation. But in general, as a takeaway, passing this year has been more effective than skill moves. You have to speed up your game, and the game itself isn't that quick, but once you start with an entry pass, you can kind of speed it up, the cadence or the tempo of the game via some first-time passing, some of that tiki-taka. So if the connection at least is on your behalf, you should be able to create some moments that did not exist in FIFA 23. Number five, play styles will matter. And that's not a surprise. We looked at it last year when they were traits, or you go through the chemistry styles. You're going through every detail of how to get some sort of advantage, but it is noticeable power shots are more powerful. If you're dealing with someone who has that type of trait, some of the movements, some of the touches, some of the dribbling, of course, having the Trivela, having the flair. We know what this is all about. I know it's been rebranded this year with play styles, but I just want to reiterate that it is important, that it does matter, and you will see a difference. Players that maybe are lower rated but have a bunch of different play styles will perform better potentially than a higher rated player, if you get the drift that I'm spitting. Number six, and it makes me so sad. I'm not happy about this. I didn't want to be the bearer of bad news, but park the bus and look for those counters, whipping in the through balls. All of that will be a definite factor. Early on, within that 15-hour journey, I was saying, maybe it's not there. I was playing a lot of attacking players, so there's space to work with. You had quick passing. You could find the in behind. It was just a different type of gameplay. But then, as I started moving up the division rivals, as we do, similar to a weekend league, that foot champs stylistic approach, players started getting deeper and deeper, and AI defending was without a doubt a factor. So many bodies to try to break through. I will say this, you can beat the AI better this year, or put them on an island if you get in those types of positions, but you're still gonna have to deal a lot of bodies. And this is just my first impression, my first takeaway. I'm not overjoyed, clearly, and I don't know that we're going to see a ton of the 5 at the back. I played a few people that were running some of these additional wingers, and it kind of comes down to pressure play and how well you're going to be able to generate pressure authentically without giving up too much with spacing. I still haven't mastered anything along the tactical lines yet, but I've noticed a lot in terms of different formations, different tactics, different players, and even player positioning, both defensively and offensively. But for sure, there will be an aspect of park the bus and look for those deep outlets, look for those through balls, look for the players in the right place at the right time. Number 7, crossing is strong. And I haven't done deep levels of experimenting, but it's, again, I see the guy, I look for the pass, I look for the cross, back post, near post. Something I noticed this year, then I've always played on semi-crossing. Maybe I should put that as a disclaimer or an asterisk. I think a lot of you will switch to that. I put out a video with my best controller settings previously. If you want to check that out, it is worth your time. It'll give you a little bit of a jump start, what to set up in terms of game setting, controller setting. But with crossing, I was able to pinpoint the near post. I was able to whip it into the middle. I was able to whip it into the far post, and I'm scoring. Whether it's diving headers, knockdowns, back post, volleys. I haven't put together a bicycle or a scorpion kick, none of the extracurriculars, but the point that I'm making, crossing is effective. The goalkeepers look a little bit out of place with a good cross, and you can tap it home. A lot of times I could see my opposition, or even when my opponents were whipping in crosses, that my players weren't going to win the positions, that you almost had a matchup advantage, which doesn't always exist with crossing. We typically talk about this with through balls, where you find your matchup and then you whip it into space. I've noticed the same thing with crossing. Find, identify, matchup, and then let him do his job. Let him go to work. So if you like crossing at this point of the game, you will definitely enjoy this title. Number 8, pace matters. It's not a surprise. I'm not here to be a broken record. I didn't feel this for the first half, but once you get into about the 60th minute, if you don't have meta players, if you don't have players that are 80s, generally speaking, with pace, they start looking a little slower. They're getting fatigued, the stamina's dropping down, and at times I was just getting ran by, and more importantly, I couldn't catch up. I wasn't recovering, and again, I gotta put it out there, I'm not a very defensive player, at least at this current stage. I'm looking to have fun with the game, so I'm not looking to have a bunch of drop backs. I'm not sitting super deep. My line is gonna be a little bit higher up the pitch, so perhaps if I change that, I shift the line, I get more out of those players when they start to slow down naturally from, of course, becoming a little more fatigued. Number 9, left stick dribbling. And a lot of you will have questions here. I thought that it was good. I thought it might have been better than last year, actually, and I don't know if it's just some of the new animations. EA's, of course, implemented orbit dribbling, which I haven't mastered. I'm playing around with it. A lot of the skills and the cancellations of those skills allows you different ways to unlock space. And defenders feel kind of clunky, so as long as you can get your opposition to switch to that manual defender, you can do some things. A little body feint here, a step over. Some of the new skills is this brand new drag back roll. I quite like it visually. It's easy on the eyes, and the way that it comes out, it sets you up nicely. It's hard to predict. You can re-angle it and perform it on those different directions. It's just an input that you can get behind. You can co-sign, you can backdoor, you can handshake, you can call somebody, you can make some highlights. Lastly, at number 10, and if you have questions, please use the comment section, because this does not talk about everything at all. This video is just to give you some of the takeaways from what I've noticed within the 15 hours with gameplay, but we're dealing with tactics, we're dealing with formations. I've been playing a 4-1-2-1-2, the narrow variation, which is super fun, kind of attacking. It's a little bit rambunctious. Offensively, not mad at it. Defensively, I don't love giving up the wing space just because people whip in crosses, and I don't like giving out the free outlets. I've also been playing a 4-4-2, which has been a fun formation, scoring a lot, conceding a lot in that formation as a disclaimer. I've messed around a little bit with the 4-2-3-1. I'd like to play it more because it's always a staple. I would highly recommend starting with the 4-2-3-1 in any FIFA installment. I've had a lot of success in the 4-3-3, which has not always been the case, and especially not the last few years. But 4-3-3 in this game, again, some of those outlets, taking the space, turning the corner, running and gunning, whipping in the crosses, being able to have those options, it's definitely got a viable place in the rotation. I have not started playing the 4-3-2-1, which has always been a draft formation. I have a draft set up so nicely right now. I mean, it is creme de la creme. If I can just find some opponents, I will put that into play ASAP. And as for new formations, I haven't experimented. They don't look visually or that stimulating. Maybe it'll shift 5 at the backs. I've gone against a few and it's been a little weird. Not like last year where they're so attacking, but you still have the ability to have these overlapping, these free releases. I think what's more important when you go up against a 5 at the back, at least in my mind, as long as I can counter it in terms of pressing that formation. That was the big issue we had last year, is that you almost needed to play 5 versus 5. And I'm hoping that is not the case in this season. That is not something that I want to deal with, is countering a 5 at the back with a mirror formation. And then we take turns with some of these wing outlets and just trying to match those runners. So I'm hoping that is not the case with FC 24. I've gone up against a few 5 at the backs. That is my biggest question mark. Can I press them? What formations can I use to press them? What are the best tactics in those same formations in order to press them with success? Those are my 10 takeaways. There's so much more that goes into this, from a lot of details in all ways, in all facets of the game. I will make breakdowns and tutorials and tips on so much on this channel. Everything you imagine it, it's going to be there. The aim is to upload daily, and I'm also finishing up the Patreon as this video is coming out. If you see something linked below, I appreciate all of you, and I have a lot more content coming out ASAP.